Good morning, everyone. Nice to see all of you. Now, today, I'm going to talk a little bit about a topic that is very, very often requested, which is a topic of getting rid of thoughts. A lot of people kind of touch on that. They just want to switch off the machine. They want to have some rest. They very often suffer from overthinking, rumination, can't fall asleep at night because they're constantly thinking the whole day, always having that kind of narrative in their heads. So I kind of just shortly want to address how to deal with that, how to skillfully address this problem. First of all, thoughts are not the problem. So thoughts are not your enemy. Thoughts are not what's wrong. Thoughts are not the thing that is actually disturbing you. It's much more the case that the way you are dealing with thoughts is stressful in its nature. So that is the first kind of difference from normal thought. Most people think, here I am, and I just want to be at peace. Just mind my own business, just have a happy life. And if it wasn't for all those many thoughts that I have that are disturbing me, kind of like you're in a swarm of mosquitoes and they're not leaving you alone, it's because of those thoughts that are attacking me, basically, that I can't be rested and peaceful and enjoying myself. So it's more of that kind of perception that a lot of people have in the beginning, that they feel very much like thoughts are some sort of external object that come to attack them, bother them. Yes? So like you can't fall asleep because there's someone playing music. Feels very much like it's the music that doesn't allow you to go to sleep. Kind of pulls you out of sleep, it wakes you up, it bothers you, right? It comes from the outside to disturb you on the inside. So this is actually not really true. The more aware you become, the more subtle your awareness becomes, the more you will be able to see that it's like a type of relationship that we have to the objects that we perceive. And that type of relationship is very often based on craving. By craving, we mean, I put it simply, wanting and not wanting. Okay? So you have this object there. It doesn't quite fit into your worldview, like for example thoughts. You got it into your head that once those thoughts are gone, then I can be peaceful. So you have yourself this kind of belief that I can be peaceful once those thoughts are gone. And then how do you relate to those thoughts? You relate to those thoughts through resisting them, not liking them, wanting to get rid of them, pushing them away. So there is this subtle pushing activity going on inside of you. Sometimes it's not really subtle at all. And it's that pushing activity that you feel as frustration, agitation, stress, anxiety. Yes? It's not the thoughts at all. It's like there would be a river that flows by. You would have no complaints with that river unless you get into it. Then you could complain about its coldness, its wetness, its strength in pushing you over and so forth. That is only problems because you went into the river and you're in somehow opposing it. So in the same way, if you are stepping into the river of thought with a certain idea that you must get rid of them or something like that, then you are actually the problem because you step into it. There's a famous story of one of the teachers in Thailand, Ajahn Chai. He had his monks in the monastery and they were right next to a village. And in that village, as sometimes customary in Thailand, you have these village festivals, which can get really loud. And one of those loud village festivals going on. And so the monks in the monastery, they had trouble meditating. They were talking amongst each other, thinking, what can we do? How can we solve this? Maybe we should let the abbot, the head teacher, know that it's those villagers that are disturbing us. And if they would just stop playing their music all that loudly, we could just carry on with our practice peacefully. And so they kept discussing amongst each other, and then eventually really decided, okay, let's bring this to the abbot, to the head teacher, and see what we can do about this. So they went to Ajahn Chah and actually complained and said, well, we can't meditate because of the noise. There's so much music, it disturbs us. And Ajahn Chah's answer is, no, it's not the music disturbing you, it's you are disturbing the music. So he turned it all around. And that's actually, in fact, what really happens. If you observe your mind, then it's not thoughts that are disturbing you, it is you that disturbs your thoughts. Why not just leave them alone? Why go there? Hop into the river of thoughts, get yourself wet, and then complain about the water being all too wet. There's no point in that. The nature of thoughts is what? If you observe a thought, what do you see? Well, you will see that it comes and you will see that it goes, right? That's undeniable. I think for any of us, we all can see that very clearly. There's no such thing as a thought that comes and then stays exactly like that for the rest of all eternity. No such thing. Every thought that arises also passes. That's the nature of thoughts, much like a river, much like water that is constantly flowing or wind that is blowing. So why would I put myself into the way of that thought that just simply wants to go? Why would I hold it? Why would I start a war with it, struggle with it, complain about it? Doesn't make any sense. But we still do it because we somehow, maybe we have picked up from some meditation book, it is within thoughtless presence that you experience the true bliss of reality or something like that. And then it got into your head and you felt, oh yeah, thoughtless presence. That's what I need. But I am full of thoughts. I have so many thoughts. That's not thoughtless presence. So you compare yourself, your state, with the ideal that you've read about. And you're not at all like that. You're not a thoughtless presence. You're very much thoughtful, constantly filled with stuff. So there seems to be this conflict, right? How do I then get rid of thoughts? Is your next question. It's the wrong question. We start off all too often asking ourselves completely wrong questions. Like, how do I get rid of thoughts? Rather than asking ourselves eventually, so what is creating the suffering here? Is it the thoughts? Is it me? Is it the way I relate to thoughts? Is there a relationship between me and thought? If so, how's that? How's it like? Is it a peaceful relationship? Is it a kind relationship? Is it a stressed out relationship? And so what makes that relationship stressed out? How do I produce stress in this situation? What happens is you're simply faced with a reality. The reality is there are thoughts. That's the reality. You're faced with that. You sit down, you meditate, you see a truth. The truth is there is thoughts. There is brain activity. Okay. And now what? Now how come you're turning that truth, that reality, into a problem? Because you somehow have the idea that those thoughts shouldn't be there. But they are there. Undeniably. They're right there. But then you say again, yeah, but they shouldn't be there. It would be much better if they weren't there. What if that's the problem? I often give this example of a madman being at the beach with a baseball bat, hitting the shoreline constantly with this baseball bat, yelling and screaming, being super angry and agitated. And one time you go to this guy and ask him, what are you doing? And he says, well, I'm making the ocean flat because I absolutely hate those waves. It's just not clean enough. The ocean is not clean enough. It should be nice and straight, nice and flat, because then I could enjoy my holidays. Is that crazy or not? It's totally crazy, right? You'd never do such a thing, right? But the truth is actually different. We're all doing this. Exactly this. We think ourselves into this ideal, and then we say, I should be like this, and then we start our meditation practice from there, rather than from the truth of what actually is the reality. We're ignoring that. We're pushing that aside. We say, well, the reality may be like this, but that's not ideal, so I just push it aside and ignore it for the sake of an ideal. So I focus on this ideal, I compare myself to the ideal, I notice I'm not the ideal, I complain. That's the activity. The problem is not the thoughts at all. The problem is this kind of creative endeavor of the mind that creates some sort of ideal, and then you're fighting with reality as a result. You're battling truth. Right? That's the drama. So once you can understand them a bit more clearly, you can then approach yourself in your meditation practice and actually have a look at what I've been talking about just now, which is precisely that. You'll find exactly that. You'll be sitting there, and then you have a bunch of thoughts, and something in you will go, I don't want that. That's the problem. That thing that goes, I don't want that. That's the cause of suffering. Turn it around. If you wanted to have those thoughts all of a sudden wouldn't be a problem to you at all. So it's not the thoughts, it's how you relate to them. Yes? So in how we relate to them is that there is a process. The first one is craving. So let's say a thought arises, and it may either be pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. Okay, either of those three. A pleasant thought, something that you desire. An unpleasant thought, something you want to get rid of. And a neutral thought, something you hardly ever notice. So the way you relate to a pleasant thought is how? Wanting more. You want to get involved. You want to get lost in it. How do you relate to an unpleasant thought? You want to get rid of it. You push against it. You're fighting it. And how do you react to a neutral thought? You react with ignorance, not knowing it, being unaware, just in general. So we have these three ways of relating to our thoughts. The result, then, of this craving, and we call those three ways, we call craving, the result of that is then clinging. So you move right out of craving into clinging. So how do these two relate? First, craving is you moving towards that thought. Okay, your mind is moving towards that thought. Wanting or not wanting. In either way, you're focusing on it, so you move closer to it. Clinging is then you landing on it and holding it. Every single thought in your mind comes in order to go. It doesn't come to stay. But if you don't let it go, if you're holding it, it can't go, then you carry it. You carry its weight. That's what you experience as suffering. That clinging itself. What's the cause of clinging? It's craving. So if I want, my attention goes to the water bottle, I want, then I grab, that's clinging. Now I'm holding the water bottle, I suffer it. So in short, you are suffering the weight of whatever you're holding on to. And if you're holding on to a thought, you're suffering the weight of your thought. Could be a very heavy thought. Could be a very light thought. Either way, you're suffering its weight because you're holding it. So what happens if you're not holding a thought? And how can you manage to not hold a thought? You're doing that by stepping back and coming into a position of an observer of that thought. You want to be witnessing it, looking at the thought as an object that comes and goes. Because that's exactly what it does. So the thought arises and then it passes. It's what every single thought does. Promise. Just have a look. I invite you to look directly. Any thought. Horrific thoughts, wonderful thoughts, doesn't matter. They both come and go. You can see that. Just have a look. That's really all you need to do. Just have a look. And when you see that the thought comes and then goes, then you have already your distance, because it wouldn't go if you were obsessing over it, if you were holding it, if you were clinging to it. It couldn't go. It only goes because you're just passively watching it. So you step back, you get out of your reactive mindset, and you just become an observer to what's really going on. So the more you see the truth of the matter, the less you're impressed by your thoughts, the less you go running after them, the less you want to be involved with them, the more aware you become, the less you suffer your thoughts. And if it isn't your thoughts that you suffer, what else would there be to suffer? Think of your life, your everyday experience. How much suffering would there be if we took out the suffering of just your thoughts? How much suffering would you have left? Very, very little. Like most of our suffering is just thought. We actually never really have an actual problem. What we do is actually experience life. Things are happening. Feelings come and go. Sounds come and go. Thoughts come and go. Vision comes and goes. There's just an experience of your senses. And all of it comes and goes according to nature. But none of it is a problem. Unless thought makes it one. And unless you fall for that creation and you lose your awareness, well, then you get identified with it and you are standing right in the river and you're flushed away by it. That's the problem. So how do we get out of thinking? Very simple. I'm not saying it's very easy, okay? There's a difference between simple and easy. Fortunately, it's simple. And the simplicity is in train yourself to look and see clearly. Train yourself to see your thoughts rather than being lost in them. So that's the training. In meditation, it's part of the training. You're going to be able to listen to your inner voice. See what it has to say. And it will say all kinds of things. So many things. You just sit there and your voice just goes on and on. Always got something to say. I can't do this. It's so stuffy and hot in here. It's so stuffy and hot. Stuffy and hot. It is stuffy and hot. It is stuffy and hot. It is so stuffy and hot. Why doesn't it ever stop? Oh, that rhymed. Fantastic. Then there's a bit of silence. Maybe I could make another song. Forget this. Back to meditation. I need to concentrate. There's just so much that your voice is going to say. I guarantee you that. It'll say all kinds of silly things. It'll sing songs. It'll talk gibberish. Complete gibberish. More than one occasion when I've heard my voice say meaningful things such as seriously. You just need to listen. And especially if your awareness becomes more strong, the voice in your head becomes less defined, less clear. So it turns into this gibberish. It just falls apart. It's quite funny to see. You sit there and meditate, suddenly your voice goes like, I have an idea. Because looking immediately, it just breaks apart. It melts right in front of your eyes. Because you look directly at it. It's like you're in the bush somewhere, like a hunter, and you have a gun, and you're really awake, and there is a lion that exists somewhere around you, and that lion is just waiting for you to fall asleep. Because as long as you're awake, and you have that gun, you're a threat to that lion. That lion can't get close to you. A lion knows that. So every time he'd pop up his head slowly, and there you are aiming at its face right there with your gun, the head will go down right away again. So he'll hide away and keep waiting for his right moment. But as soon as you fall asleep, that's his chance. So as soon as your awareness becomes weak, you will be right in the middle of your thoughts. You'll become a victim of your thoughts because you have no idea what's going on. Total blindness, ignorance, lost. Okay, cool. After a while of being lost in your thoughts, you will finally notice, oh, wow, I'm dreaming away. Totally unaware of what's really happening in life. You come back. Now you're awake again. The thoughts recede into the background and then they fall apart there. And to the extent your thoughts are falling apart and you remain in that silent observation, to that extent you are charged. You feel vital, you feel good, you feel happy. You will feel a taste comes back to life. A taste that a lot of adults have lost for a long time. Because we're constantly running around heavy in our heads. We don't have that lightness that a child has. The flexibility, the clarity of mind, the vitality, the sheer life force that a child has is long gone because we have spent it all on what? On processing power in the brain. For what? Or producing random scenarios. Future scenarios, past scenarios. It's totally irrelevant to what's going on right now. That renders us inefficient. So of course we're more efficient when we pay attention to what's going on. But we can't pay attention to what's going on if we're stuck in our own heads in that story that's going on there. So train yourself to wake up to it. Again, training is simple. See your thoughts. Watch them come. See them go. It's that simple. Can you do it with one thought? Excellent. Do it with 2 in a row. Then 3. Then sustain it. Do it more and more. Do it while you eat, while you walk, while you shower. Maintain the awareness of seeing your thoughts. Don't get lost in them. See them from above. So that's the training of how to slow down the speed of your thoughts. And how to let them go. How to turn off the machine in your head. It's the observer already has turned off that machine. You're already free from thought as an observer. The mind will just catch up. It takes a bit of time. It's well worth of a training. It's time well invested. Okay? So that's all that comes to mind on this topic. Are there any questions?